Tonight, the Mayor of London calls Donald Trump racist, sexist, misogynistic and Islamophobic. The blistering attack on the US president comes after Sadiq Khan was personally attacked by Trump at the UN General Assembly. There's now pressure on senior Labour figures to say where they stand. Double controversy for Nigel Farage over whether Donald Trump was right to link autism to paracetamol and claims that migrants are eating swans in royal parks. The government claims success in the struggle to control migration as a family of three become the first to land in the UK as part of the one-in, one-out deal with France. The Conservatives call for an investigation into the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, after allegations that he sought to mislead the authorities over a donation. And as the White House claims that Donald Trump was deliberately left stuck on an escalator at the UN, we look at other times politicians have had mishaps getting where they need to be. I'm delighted to say that our duo, Baroness Thangham Debonair and Dame Andrea Jenkins, have both made it here safely tonight. They'll be with us for the next hour. It's Wednesday. I'm Darren McCaffrey, live from Westminster, and this is the Politics Hub. A very good evening. Tonight's two Labour politicians who aren't even in the cabinet, not even MPs, but they're making all the news. They are, of course, the so-called King of the North, Andy Burnham, and can we say it, the King of the Capital, Sadiq Khan. Let's start with Andy Burnham. He's in the news for this profile in the New Statesman today, which is not just an attack on the government, calling for a wholesale reset of Labour's policies to avoid defeat, but also it seems to be a pretty unashamed leadership pitch. That is, if Starmer is to stumble further, or as Boris used to say, if the ball happens to come loose from the scrum and all that. And then there is Sadiq Khan, who's in the news for some very different reasons.
I think President Trump has shown he is racist, he is sexist, he is misogynistic, and he's Islamophobic.
Now, that slangy match between Donald Trump and Sadiq Khan is not new. They've definitely got history, haven't they? But in 2016, this is what Keir Starmer had to say about Donald Trump. He said there is no doubt that some of Donald Trump's comments have been offensive, shocking and disturbing, and I would join those who say that they are not funny, but repugnant. Today, however, silence, nothing, nada, in defence of his friend Sadiq Khan. Now, this is, of course, politically tricky for the Prime Minister. There's no doubt about that, because he is, of course, now the Prime Minister trying to maintain a relationship with the President of the United States. But for many Labour supporters, there is increasing frustration that Keir Starmer is seemingly not prepared to stand up and call out what they see as an unwarranted attack on the Labour Mayor of London. And all this for a Prime Minister who's more unpopular after 40 months in government than Rishi Sunak was after 14 years of Conservatives' rule. His position is precarious, so precarious that in different ways, on different subjects, two possible leadership candidates have grabbed the headlines today. They've marked out distinct political differences with the Prime Minister they both one day might hope to replace. That's my thought tonight, but we're going to get the reaction to this latest round of Trump versus Khan in just a moment. But let's just a reminder of what the President had to say about the Mayor of London at the UN yesterday.
And I have to say, I look at London where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law. But you're in a different country. You can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained.
Well, today, clearly, Sadiq Khan decided enough was enough. He hit back with a series of pointed criticisms of the US president.
Listen, when people say things, when people act in a certain way, when people behave in a certain way, you've got to believe them.
So you're saying he is Islamophobic?
I think President Trump has shown he is racist, he is sexist, he is misogynistic, and he's Islamophobic. One of the things about having a special relationship, it's akin to having a best friend. I think when you have a best friend, you should expect more from them. It's very different to an acquaintance or somebody who's just, a distant friend. I think one of the advantages of having a special relationship with the USA is obviously when it comes to trade, when it comes to military alliances, when it comes to other areas where we work close together. But it should also mean you've got the confidence to call them out when they're wrong. I think President Trump is wrong in many, many ways.
Well, our political correspondent, Maury Rory, is with me here in the studio. And this is interesting, not least of all because this is a genuine kind of slagging match between the US President and the Mayor of London. But it is also complicated for the Prime Minister. And lots of people today have been looking at what Labour politicians are saying, how far they're prepared to go.
Exactly that. So we have a situation now where so far we've had essentially radio silence from the Prime Minister on this. Yesterday we had Wes Streeting, who was coming out, posting on Twitter, X, defending Sadiq Khan. Today we had Pat McFadden, the Work and Pensions Secretary of State, asked directly about this. And he was asked, yes or no, is Donald Trump Islamophobic? And he didn't answer the question. And he basically just said, the laws that we have here are British laws and they apply to London, they apply to the UK. Basically trying to say he's wrong without saying he's wrong. And as you rightly point out, the government is concerned. They have to keep Donald Trump on side. We know that they're, to an extent, being quite friendly with Donald Trump has probably contributed to our ability to get certain trade deals or potentially slightly less punishing tariffs, for instance. And so Keir Starmer will have that at the forefront of his mind. The difficulty is the image at the moment is that we don't have a PM sticking up for Sadiq Khan.
Someone who calls a friend.
Exactly that. And when this happened last time, and Donald Trump was in Scotland giving a press conference with the Prime Minister, and he said something about Sadiq Khan then, the Prime Minister piped up in that moment and said, hold on a second, he's my friend. This time around, we haven't had that. And so I think the difficulty is that some Labour MPs are going to be watching this and thinking to themselves, well, hold on a second, Donald Trump is clearly attacking Sadiq Khan, and many people have said that this is clearly because he is a Muslim. So the question would be, well, why wouldn't the PM at least say something that would be acceptable, some kind of a compromise without explicitly criticising the Prime Minister? And I think that is where the thorny issue is for the Prime Minister today.
All right, as always, thank you very much indeed. Let's bring in Joe Grogan now. He's a former assistant to Donald Trump, kind of essentially, I think, from maybe where the US president is coming from. Just explain to us, Joe, if you can, what is this beef? Why is there beef between Sadiq Khan and the US President, Donald Trump?
Well, I think some of it goes back to, the first term when President Trump came to London and Sadiq Khan was basically cheering on protesters and those who were putting giant disrespectful floats out against President Trump. I think the other thing is that, he talks to a lot of British citizens and a lot of residents of London who aren't happy with what's happened to the city. And in the last few years under Sadiq Khan's mayorship. So I think he speaks from a personal animus towards Sadiq Khan, but also a general feeling, a lover of cities, that London could be doing a lot better with a different mayor.
Well, let's pick up on that. First of all, Sadiq Khan has won 3 elections back to back. Donald Trump can't claim that, can he? But I think the second thing is...
He does claim it.
Well, he does claim it. That's a fair point, but many people would disagree with him on that. I think, Joe, also, this idea about Sharia law, there's no... You now live in London. There's no evidence for that, is there?
Well, look, I think it's a broad... He waged a broad attack on London in the context of a larger condemnation of the UN and a lot of the policies that they're pursuing, including mass migration and fueling mass migration, and not doing what they need to do to stem it and to support countries to provide for the protection of their own borders. I think it should be understood in that context. I don't think it should be viewed in isolation. So you view the whole speech, it's a part of a whole. And in that context, there's no question that just as Britain found itself voting for Brexit just due to mass migration, London has faced stress as well. And it's one of the reasons why you have mass protests here in London.
Well, but Joe, so first of all, I think we can all conclude there is no kind of actual evidence about the Sharia law point. On the second thing, but London, as you well know, as someone who lives here, is different from the rest of Britain. It obviously voted to remain inside the EU. As in, I think lots of Londoners, most Londoners probably are pretty comfortable with migration. But second of all, when it comes to this issue of, frankly, the US president getting involved in what London is like, why is... He wouldn't like that if other foreign politicians were getting involved in US cities.
Oh, he probably wouldn't, but you're talking about a guy who loves cities. He's irritated by what's going on in New York City and the prospect of a socialist taking over in New York City, and he wants London to be the best city it can be. He's still irritated by the fact that the U.S. Embassy got moved south of the river and isn't in a prime location in downtown London. It's a city that he loves. It's a city in a country that he respects greatly, and he thinks it can do better. And
but on many levels, you could also argue, Joe, and you would know this, that London is in a better position than lots of US cities. It's wealthier than a lot of them. It's more international than a lot of them. It's got a lower crime rate than a lot of them.
Oh, well, he's been very critical of many U.S. mayors as well. I mean, I don't think Sadiq Khan should necessarily feel as if he's the only mayor in the world that's being singled out. He's been very critical of mayors in the U.S., and he wants cities to do better. He loves cities. And I don't think Sadiq coming back with an attack saying, oh, well, he's obviously sexist. Meanwhile, the president is the first one to have a female chief of staff and has many senior White House staff and cabinet officials who are women. And it's had a lot of women in the first term. That he's racist and that he's Islamophobic. When he, is obviously Saudi Arabia is one of his first overseas trips, and he has developed warm relationships
do you not
with
think,
a number of
are you genuinely saying, Sadiq Khan is, I think he was the first Muslim mayor in Europe, certainly. Do you think his religion, his race has got nothing to do with Donald Trump's antagonism towards it? Because in many ways, the criticism, of course, from people like Sadiq Khan did begin with that so-called Muslim ban back in his first term.
Well, the Muslim ban was mischaracterized completely. It was about countries that couldn't vet their citizens well and had high incidents of terrorism and terrorist activity in their countries. So to characterize it as a Muslim ban was a slur from the very beginning. It had nothing to do with religion. So let me turn the question back on you. Do you think Sadiq Khan religion fuels his criticism of President Trump? Do you think that he jumps right to the conclusion that any criticism of him is necessarily Islamophobic when President Trump has warm relationships with Muslim leaders all over the world? I mean, give me a break. So he has suffered at the fact that he has had unfair and untrue aspersions cast upon his policies. And Sadiq Khan doesn't like the fact that he's getting criticized. So he goes right back with the same old nonsense about sexism and racism and Islamophobia. And it's not true.
OK, well, this is a row that will undoubtedly continue, almost certainly online between both of them as well. Joe, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Let's get a bit more reaction now from the Labour MP, Dawn Butler, who also joins us live this evening. Dawn, your reaction to all of this? I mean, Joe was simply saying, this is just criticism from Donald Trump, and my word, he criticises a lot of people.
I mean, does he think we're stupid? It was evidently Islamophobic. It was an Islamophobic trope. Saying that we're going to have Sharia law in London is ridiculous. And I think what Trump needs to do is keep Mayor Sadiq Khan out of his mouth, and he also needs to keep London out of his mouth. We don't want President Trump's rhetoric here in London or even in the UK. We are way better than what President Trump is trying to say about our country and about London and about our Mayor Sadiq Khan. And it's just so irritating because he's obviously a very strange president, let's say, but also release the Epstein files. Because I think a lot of this is just trying to distract people.
OK, well,
release the Epstein files.
let's stay on topic if we can, Dawn. And just on that point, though, are you then disappointed that your leader, the Prime Minister's, frankly said nothing about this today?
I haven't followed all the news.
Well, I can tell you he hasn't.
To be honest. But if he hasn't, then yes, of course I'm disappointed. Because we should be standing up for London and we should be standing up for our Mayor, Sadiq Khan. But also we should be highlighting the fact that the President of the United States has just told a whopping big lie about London. and about our mayor. And in addition to that, he's been Islamophobic. So, of course, we need to stand up to him. And look, we understand that you have to have a relationship with the President of the United States, the office. We need to maintain that relationship. But having that relationship also means that you have to be honest. And, if you accept this lie in this way, he'll just tell a bigger lie. So it's to nip this in the bud right now in no uncertain terms that we won't stand for it.
And even if that essentially is to the detriment of the personal relationship between him and Donald Trump, you think the right thing for him to do is, from your point of view, to call this out?
Well, I would say then what is that personal relationship built on? If you can't be honest and call out Islamophobia or racism or sexism, then what is your relationship built on? And that would be the question that I would ask. If I had a friend and that friend had done something wrong or been racist, then I would say, what you've said is unacceptable, it's racist, it's misogynistic, and you need to sort of atone for that. So then you ask yourself, what is that relationship built on? And I think that our relationship in the UK must be built on something that is right, fair and solid. And being Islamophobic, it definitely doesn't characterise who we are as a country. I think sometimes we forget what our Britishness is in our country, and we are more united than divided. And we need to stop having foreign politicians and foreign people come in and tell us what we are and what we are not, because the majority of people are fair, law-abiding people, especially in London.
OK, Dawn, appreciate your time. Dawn Butler there, Labour MP. Thank you very much indeed. Well, let's bring in our duo for this evening, the Labour peer and former Shadow Culture Secretary, Baroness Thangham Debonair, and the Reform UK Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, Dame Andrea Jenkins. Ladies, very good evening to you both.
Hi.
Andrea, you wouldn't be happy, would you, with this? I mean, a foreign politician interfering in our politics, slagging off our politicians?
No. Let's not forget that Sadiq Khan's always attacked Trump, even in his first term. They've never had those good relations. So this goes back prior to this second term of government. And, I've met with an international think tank recently in my capacity as mayor. And it's that perception. London is not perceived as being a safe area. And when I met with this think tank, they were saying that international investors do not necessarily want to invest in London. And look, regarding the Sharia law comment, we've got...
it's baloney, isn't it, though? Is it?
But I think it's about perception, actually. Because we've got 85 Sharia courts in Britain.
But the whole point is, like, words in politics matter. Yeah. And you can say it's kind of,
well, maybe tell Sadiq Khan that words matter.
But you can sit here and say that Sharia law is not coming to London, can't you?
Sorry?
Can you sit here and say that Sharia law is not coming to London?
Well, I don't represent London. I don't know, London enough.
But it's not.
Of course, there's no evidence. But as I said, there's 85 Sharia courts in Britain. There was a BBC article which. A couple of years ago saying that we are the Western capital. But I think it's took out of context in the fact that, Trump's previous advisor, who was your guest previously, he was right. Look at the bigger speech. And I think Trump does want Britain to do well. We've always had that special relationship. And I do feel that London's gone down the pan, if I'm honest.
Thangham? Because Joe was right also saying that he does attack a lot of people on a lot of issues, and he also says a lot of things that, let's be honest about it, he himself probably knows are not true, as in, that idea that you don't take him literally.
Well, he's the President of the United States. We should take seriously what he says. I don't think it's funny to accuse Sadiq Khan of running Sharia law in London when that's obviously not true. London is the most amazing city, as part of the most amazing country in the world, with the most fantastic culture, with the most fantastic museums and galleries and things to do that are free, great parks. It's a brilliant place to live.
People don't feel safe there.
And it's a brilliant place to live. And if Donald Trump was here last week. He was here last week and he went home and he's saying this about us.
Well, he wants the best for our country,
This is a really
actually.
strange thing to say about our capital city, which is an absolutely wonderful place to live. Every single day I'm here during the week, every single week, and I find people going about their business, living a good life. Yes, there is crime across the world. London's crime rate has actually gone down, as I understand it, and I think you mentioned that earlier. We have a fantastic travel system. I think there is a sense in which Donald Trump is just lashing out without thinking, and that worries me, because he is the president.
No, but don't you think they've got a history of not getting on?
Andrea,
Yes.
are you going to interrupt every time I speak?
Well, we don't want to have a discussion.
Really, it's called a debate, isn't it?
Andrew, let's pick up on this idea about Islamophobia.
Bizarre thing to say.
Islamophobia. Do you believe that's a thing, being Islamophobic?
No, I don't, because look, I mean...
You don't believe it?
No,
I mean, Lee
no,
Anderson
look.
today tweeted saying that he thinks there's no such thing.
No, I mean, look, you get racists in society, which, you know, we should always call them out, wherever racism is directed. Of course we should. But, you know, we are a country built on tolerance, but also it's about, I do believe, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. I mean, look, I performed in...
What on earth does that mean?
But it's about adopting our culture as well. I mean, look,
how would you describe our culture, then?
Well,
Please try and describe it.
Our culture is, it's about celebrating being British as well.
With you there.
Well, why...
And Sadiq does as well. Sadiq celebrates being British.
So
He's
can
the
I ask
mayor
you-
of the capital city.
So you're
of the
interrupting
United...
me now,
Yeah,
so
because
that's
you said it
okay.
was a debate, and you said what an odd thing to do. So I'm
Okay.
following your rules now, Andrea.
Gosh, you're
and
very
I would like to
sarcastic, aren't
say,
you?
I would
Well, I
like
can't
to
get a word
ask
in
you.
edgeways.
You're absolutely right. You can't, because London is a fantastic city. It is the capital city of the United Kingdom. Sadiq is a patriot. He is proud of our country. So. Lee Anderson wants to call him out and say that he's wrong to call him Islamophobic. Well, what is wrong with that?
I'd say calm down, actually, yeah.
Oh, love.
No,
But just on a serious...
dear.
No, I'm proud of Britain.
Oh, so you're fine when you interrupt me, but you're not fine when I call you to account.
What interrupted you once, for God's sake?
Let's not make this a debate about when we can talk and count. That would be a bit tedious.
I'll go back to not interrupting.
Let's focus on the issue. You obviously can be Muslim and British. So
yes, of course you can.
So why do you not think? Explain to us why you think that there is no such thing as Islamophobia.
Well, no, but I mean, look, you can say, of course you can be Muslim and British. We've got a fantastic, Zia is in our party, is amazing, and he's Muslim. We've got different religions in every party, and we should celebrate that without a doubt.
And just very briefly on this. You've been quite impassioned tonight. We saw it from Dawn Butler too. We've seen it from Wes Street and others. You must be disappointed.
But they always pull the racist card, Labour do.
Well, but just on Keir Starmer not saying anything.
I am standing up for Sadiq Khan because he's a fantastic mayor. Dawn stood up for Sadiq Khan because he's a fantastic mayor. Any number of people are doing that. Keir Starmer is running the country. I want him to concentrate on running the country.
He tweets about a lot of stuff.
I'm pretty sure that's not his thumb personally.
He tweets about football victories and he tweets about...
Because he's patriotic, and I agree with that.
No, but he could take the time out to say something today.
Well, I'm not responsible for Keir's calendar, but I am responsible for what I say, and I say that Sadiq Khan is a fantastic mayor, fantastic city. He is fully patriotic, and I think it's really weird when Andrea says Labour always pulls the race card.
We've got a whole hour on this. We've got a whole hour.
What does that even mean?
It's been
what does that even mean?
No, you always call people racist. It's just crazy.
Have I called anybody racist?
I'm not saying you personally.
Can we pause there
you
for a
did
minute?
use the first person.
I mean, it's certainly been a lively start to the programme, hasn't it?
Well, maybe
There's no doubt about that. Let's move on briefly, because we're going to tell you that this story undoubtedly will be touching in tomorrow's newspapers. And we've got an extended press preview from 10:30 this evening. Not least of all, looking at those headlines tomorrow. And joining us will be the political commentator Adam Bolton and the Daily Mail's Whitehead editor Claire Ellicott. Well, it's not been a dull start to the programme, I think we can definitely say that. And the fallout over those controversial comments from Donald Trump, which he linked paracetamol to autism, have continued here today. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has hit out at Nigel Farage for refusing to criticise those claims made by the President. But the Reform leader was speaking on LBC this morning, and this is what Nigel Farage had to say.
when Donald Trump talks about links between paracetamol or Tylenol and autism, is he right?
I have no idea.
You think he might be right?
I have no idea. You know, we were told thalidomide was a very safe drug and it wasn't. Who knows? Nick, I don't know. You don't know. He has a particular thing about autism, I think because there's been some in his family, and he feels it very personally. I have no idea.
You wouldn't side with the medical experts who say it's dangerous nonsense?
I wouldn't. When it comes to science, I don't side with anybody.
Right. You don't.
No, I don't side with anybody. You know, because science is never settled.
OK, let's try and get through a discussion on this, if we can. Andrew, who do you side with?
Look, I mean, I think you've got to have discussions. Look, I'm neurodiverse, my son's neurodiverse, and I'm very passionate about SEND children and giving those chances in life. But you've got to have discussions. And like Nigel, I agree. We haven't looked at the evidence. We don't know what Trump's seen. But if I can just give a prime example, the COVID jab. My sister, my amazing sister, had the COVID jab. She ended up in a coma. She died twice, had to be resuscitated. She woke up from the coma paralysed from the neck down. So I'd openly want to see debate in lots of subjects and actually, you know, more research in effects. I mean, I'd like to see more research on these diet drugs, to be honest, the long-term effects. So I think there's nothing wrong with actually putting it out there.
But there's also nothing wrong with, because politics matters, and again, what politicians say matters, there's also nothing
But we don't
wrong.
know what research is saying.
Well, yeah, but Nigel Farage, instead of saying, well, I don't know anything, wouldn't he be right to say, well, let's follow the advice of the country's senior medical officials?
No, but I mean...
Isn't that what...
No, but I was just... When we knew he was doing this topic, I quickly Googled, and there was a Guardian article which quoted saying that that recent studies show that pregnant women who take paracetamol, they're slightly more likely to have a child with autism.
Well, I mean...
So I don't know what...
Lots of different
studies...
I'm
just saying, so, yeah.
But we also know that most medical experts don't necessarily agree with that outcome. And we also heard from
I'm
Michael
just looking
Gove,
at a Guardian article.
Well, but we also heard from Michael Gove last night, who very interestingly said that actually autism, there are a lot of people with autism.
But don't you think we ought to look actually in drugs full stop and the impacts? I think that's important.
No, of course, but that's what scientists do, not necessarily.
But I think the pharma have become too powerful, and we've got to make sure we actually look at long-term effects.
Sangham?
Pharma companies and scientists do research. They're not allowed to license drugs without doing controlled trials on thousands and thousands of subjects. Having a debate about medicine, especially one as important as this, where you have a very, very serious topic, that is autism, and you have another very serious topic, that is damage to children and parents in pregnancy, it's irresponsible. It's not there's no harm. Of course there is harm.
It's irresponsible not looking into stuff, though.
Are you a scientist, Andrea? Because I'm not, and neither is Nigel. And questioning when there is a consequence, and the consequence will be that women are worried now about taking paracetamol, and if they have a fever during pregnancy, the current medical evidence is that there is more of a danger of not being treated for that fever to them and their unborn child. I think that's important. Having a debate and putting out there information that hasn't been supported by research is not responsible when it comes to the risk of different conditions and also the risk to children in pregnancy.
Debate's always important, but we definitely should, and we absolutely do point out that the medical evidence from the specialists, from the official position, is that what Donald Trump said the other night is not correct. Let's turn on, if we can, to royal parks, because that's also been at the heart of what Nigel Farage had to say. This is what he had to say about the idea around swans being eaten by migrants. This is the reaction from the royal parks, saying we've not had any incidents reported of people killing or eating swans in London's 8 royal parks. Our wildlife officers work closely with the Swan Sanctuary to ensure the welfare of swans across the parks. Sounds a bit like when Donald Trump talked about they're eating the dogs, as in... but the problem here is, Andrew, there's now a pattern of reform politicians saying things that, frankly, the people who are actually at the front line of these things go, there's no evidence for this.
But can I just say, look, I was a councillor in Boston, and there was a serious issue with our ducks on the river with them being stolen and eaten. It is a fact. Come to Boston, ask the local people.
I mean, I don't know about the case in Boston, but in this case
and that's going back 10 years ago.
There is clearly no evidence.
Well, clearly, would you like to come to Boston?
Andrea?
Are you doing yoga there or something? You know, to try and calm yourself from, you know, speaking on a panel with somebody who's in reform? I mean, very bizarre reaction you have there.
Andrew, but there is, again, like, there is no evidence for this. You accept that? I mean, the people literally...
I've seen evidence in Boston myself 10 years ago of the Turks.
We're not talking about Boston, we're talking about swans in royal parks. Your leader went on the radio and said he had heard, or he...
Well, he'd heard.
Yeah, but you can't just go around saying you've heard stuff, can you?
Apparently you can. Apparently you can. The royal parks who run the park said there was absolutely no evidence of this. It is extraordinary.
What do you think they'd actually want to put that out there?
OK, yeah. but on this...
bless you.
But on this issue...
You're so patronising, bless you.
Please, let's try and keep it civil. Just on this, so there is a problem with our politics around trust, though, Thangham. We have to accept that you know, it actually bleeds into what Joe was saying at the start of the programme about perception. And that is a challenge for politicians, I think, particularly like yourself, about how...
And there's an issue with snary politicians who look down on people. Case in point.
Do you want to respond? Or?
I'd like to hear your question.
Well, my question was, how do you take on and deal with issues of perception, whether they're real or not? Because that is a challenge in today's media environment, in today's politics.
It is, and I think it's important that we do serious debate with serious evidence and that we aren't just making unfounded allegations, because that's how you undermine trust. That's how you build division and you build suspicion. That doesn't support trust. To say things about medicines without any decent evidence is irresponsible. To say things about swans is, quite frankly, ridiculous. And the Royal Park saying there is no evidence of this, it's extraordinary that Nigel Farage would just come out with something that's obviously just come out of his head or from somewhere, but not based on evidence. And I'm not really sure what level of trust he thinks is going to be built up by making stuff up about people eating swans.
OK, for the moment, we're going to take a break.
OK.
We're going to take a break, if that's OK. You're watching The Politics Hub. Coming up, we're going to deal with another uncontroversial issue, that of migration. The landmark first arrival into the UK as part of the one-in, one-out deal with France is underway. We'll have all the details and probably a lot of chat about this after the break.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
Very welcome back to the Politics Hub. Now let's turn to migration, because a small child's among a family of 3 to be the first to reach the UK, landing today via the one-in, one-out deal. 4 migrants have so far been sent back to France as part of the arrangement to try and stop Channel crossings. Let's bring in Olivia Godfrey, who is in the Sky newsroom for us. And Olivia, this is part of that deal and something the government obviously have been trying to work on over the last couple of months.
Well, indeed, and this family of 3, which, as you say, includes a small child, are the first arrivals under this new legal route, part of the one-in, one-out deal that the UK agreed with France back in July, where those who come over on small boats are essentially blocked access to the UK's asylum system and deported back to France. And in exchange, we take the equivalent number from France to apply for asylum through what the government would say was the proper legal channels. Now, so far, 4 men have been deported. An Indian, an Eritrean and an Iranian were deported last week, and an Afghan man was deported on Monday. And now today, this family of 3 have arrived to claim asylum in the UK. So effectively, the UK still owes 1 slot for somebody to claim asylum under this pilot scheme. Now, the Home Office have issued a statement today. They say the UK-France deal is a historic agreement, and these are critical first steps. This is a clear message to people smuggling gangs that illegal entry into the UK will not be tolerated. Now, whether or not the 4 people being sent to France and 3 people coming back will deter the more than 32,000 people who have arrived on small boats so far this year remains to be seen, Darren.
OK, Olivia, live for us in the newsroom. Thank you very much indeed. Let's talk about this with our panel tonight. We probably have a view or two. Andrew, the government said they were going to try and deal with this. Now, you could pick a million holes in it, of course you can, but this is a plan and it is starting to work.
Look, I'd take my hat off to anybody who's got a plan and trying to tackle it, but it's going to take centuries to try and, get rid of people out of our country. I mean, we are at breaking point and we're still bringing people in with this system, and our services are at breaking point. I mean, what we need to do is stop the pull to Britain, and we need a better points-based system. Look where we've got skill shortages if people want to come and set a business. And we also need to look at the benefits system. I mean, I personally would not allow anyone who comes into this country to claim any benefits unless they've been contributing financially to the country for at least a decade. So we've got to stop the pull. We are soft-touch Britain, and that's why reform has got a strong policy. And as I said, it will take centuries to get the balance right and send more people back under Labour.
There is a problem here with the numbers, isn't there, in the sense that this deal is starting to work now, but we're seeing tens of thousands of people still arrive every year. And so, in essence, when you're talking about 4 people in and 4 people out, and 3 people in, most people go, we need to do a lot more than that.
I understand that, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's a good thing that this government has actually been talking to the French and got where there was no reciprocal deal because of Brexit. We used to have a reciprocal deal before Brexit. It was called the Dublin Agreement. That went because Boris Johnson's deal had no provision for that. And then now we do actually have one. But the thing, you mentioned then about thousands of people arriving each year. Most of them are legal, and they arrive with legal reasons to be here. The number who are illegal, we absolutely need to stop gangs smuggling people and taking money off them and treating them brutally, frankly. But I think the language that's being used at the moment about migration as if it's all the same is really unhelpful.
But the problem here for the government is, Keir Starmer said we're going to smash the gangs.
Yes, which is about illegal migration.
It is, and this deal is part of that, but he's not smashed the gangs. I mean, the numbers are almost essentially at a record high. I mean, if anything, but isn't this the problem, is that whether it's the Conservative government or the Labour government, they said, we're going to stop this. And actually...
People don't believe it.
Well, it's not happening, I think. Isn't that fair?
I think what's interesting, though, is that, Andrea, for instance, mentioned our services at breaking point. Let's take the NHS or social care. Without people who were born in another country, both of those services would
I
indeed
said if we've got a
follow.
skills shortage, it's right.
And both of those services, if we sent back people who had, for instance, indefinite leave to remain, which is a facility that Nigel Farage wants to abolish, both of those public services, both essential, would really, really struggle to continue operating. The wages, the minimum wage limit that Nigel Farage is talking about at the moment would not allow nurses to come here. It would not allow people in social care. If he wants to make exceptions, I think he needs to make that clear, and he has done no such thing.
OK, Andrew, just briefly on that is a point, as in, like, you know, even what Nigel Farage announced this week is lots of our public services would be unsustainable under some of the plans that
But we've also got to train our own people. I mean, look, I want to see a parity of esteem between the trades, technical, academic qualifications, and we've got to start training our own people.
OK. Right. We've run out of time on this, but we are going to take a break and we'll be back again, I promise, because we're going to be talking about Morgan McSweeney. He is, of course, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, and he's facing allegations that he misled the authorities over a donation. We'll have the details of that story, and we'll have some fun, I promise, as well, after the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Politics Hub on this Wednesday evening. Now, the Conservative Party is calling for an investigation into donations made to Sir Keir Starmer's leadership campaign back in 2020 from a group called Labour Together. The Tories are alleging that the Prime Minister may have failed to declare thousands of pounds worth of support. This is Starmer's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, because he ran the campaign group at the time. But the Cabinet Minister, Pat McFadden, told Sky News a little earlier today that the elections watchdog had already looked at this issue and had already issued a fine that had been paid.
the Electoral Commission, which is the body which is charged with policing donations, declarations, everything of this kind, they looked into these issues 3 or 4 years ago. They took action at the time and they issued a statement last night making clear that was the case. I think Morgan is a highly talented individual. I'm not surprised the Tories are targeting someone like that.
Well, let's bring in our rather dynamic duo for this evening, Baroness Langham Debonair and Andrea Jenkins. Langham, let's talk about this in kind of relation to what Pat McFadden was just saying there, which is, I mean, the details are a bit complicated and, you know, lots of people are saying this issue's been in the public for a long time. But there is a sense, isn't there, that when journalists and opposition MPs know the government's faltering, whatever, they can relaunch attacks again. It does kind of somewhat feel like that, doesn't it?
It does, but it also feels slightly desperate just to make a story about a member of staff, and government...
He is a very key member of staff.
He is.
I mean, he's the Prime Minister's right-hand man, essentially.
Absolutely, but he's not the Prime Minister. He's not an elected politician. He's a member of staff. And I think Pat was quite right to make a defence and saying, you know, that the Electoral Commission has already looked into it, because they are the proper body to look into it, and they have. Now, if they want to look into it again, that's absolutely within their rights.
But this comes back to a bit of the discussion we were talking about earlier about perception, because do you remember the Prime Minister came in and he said, effectively, we're going to kick the Conservative Party out because there is a perception of sleaze around them. But if you look at the polls, and this should be concerning for Labour, is increasingly people are thinking that of them as well.
Yeah, and it is concerning. And I look at the polls a lot. I'm sure you do even more than me, but I know that we are, and the Labour Party, we've got problems on both sides, which we need to be addressing. I want to see us actually talking about the things that we have done already and the things that we're going to do. And I think the fact that we've had a Deputy Prime Minister until very recently who had got absolutely focused on building council housing to deal with the housing crisis. I think that was brilliant. I still think it is. I think when we've done things about workers' rights, I think there's any number of things that we could be talking about. Getting pulled off course is not helpful, of course, but I'm not surprised that the Tories did this, the best they can do when we've got a housing crisis, which they presided over and caused for 14 years. Not surprised they don't want to talk about that when it's actually something the Labour government's doing something about.
Andrew, do you feel a little bit of sympathy here? Because, you know, there are a lot of attacks in politics, of course, that's kind of the business of politics to a degree, but some of it can be unfair, and we've seen that in the past. What do you
I say people in glass houses, be careful about throwing stones. I mean, Labour was so sanctimonious when, you know, Boris was in government as Prime Minister, and my issue is that, look, they got fined over this, and yet Starmer still promoted him as his Chief of Staff, knowing that when he was running his campaign, he made that kind of decision and messed up on that. So it shows Starmer's lack of judgment, I personally think. And also I agree with your point earlier that it feels a bit like, I mean, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but to me it feels like end of days for Starmer because knives are out. We've seen what Andy Burnham's saying, you know, wanting to go for leadership, etc. And so I think Starmer's in big trouble. Actually.
Just very finally on that, because we haven't really actually touched upon Andy Burnham, and I think today was a little bit significant. I mean, it's about to be Labour Party conference. We know Keir Starmer's, you know, not quite as popular as he would like to be, let's put it that, inside and outside the Labour Party. What's your thoughts about what Andy Burnham did today?
I really don't think when we've got a country that needs so many things to do for it, we've also got a great country and we're patriots. I don't think it's helpful for anybody to start sticking their oar in about who should or should not replace Keir Starmer.
So Andy Burnham...
Keir Starmer is our Prime Minister.
So Andy Burnham should pipe down?
I would like him to.
Do you know, Andy Burnham invited me to the Labour Party conference. I got an invite this week to be on a panel with him. Yes.
Are you going to go?
No, it's a Sunday. I'm looking after my little one. So.
OK, but yeah. he should let Keir Starmer get on with his job?
Yes, he should.
OK. Right, let's take another break here on the Politics Hub, a short one this time, because coming up next, I think a little bit of fun with politics. Mishap or conspiracy? We're going to be talking about Donald Trump as he tries to hunt down what happens with that UN escalator yesterday. And we look at other times when the simple things in politics have gone very, very wrong.
Coming up on the UK Tonight from 8, I speak to Boris Becker about his life behind bars. The three-time Wimbledon champion serving 8 months in prison. And he's written a book about the violence, drug use and the prisoners who don't want to leave because of the fear of deportation. Also tonight, we'll be discussing a breakthrough in the treatment of Huntington's disease. And the Mayor of London has hit back against the President of the United States. All that and much more to come in the UK Tonight from 8.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
Go ahead, back, white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent based here in Bangkok. We've been undercover inside Asia's huge network of scam centres.
This compound is, without a doubt, the worst. It is essentially hell on earth.
We cover a vast, varied and dynamic region that's shaping the rest of the world.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Right, welcome back to the Politics Hub. Well, now, in his address to the UN yesterday, Donald Trump took aim at a whole host of things, scolding countries on issues ranging from immigration to green energy. But amid all of that, there was one thing he took time to make sure that everyone knew that he was very irate about.
All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
It is true, he and the First Lady, Melania, got stuck on the escalator on the way to the speech. And after the President's press secretary suggested the UN staff may have sabotaged the President, calling for a firing and an investigation if someone at the UN intentionally stopped the stairs. But officials have now said the cause was closer to Mr. Trump. A spokesperson for the UN apparently said that a videographer from the US delegation who ran ahead of the President triggered the stop mechanism at the top of the escalator. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, well, let's have a little bit of fun, because it's not just President Trump who's the first politician to have suffered a mishap that's got him a little bit stuck. Many of them have. Let's have a look.
I was trying to escape. It didn't work.
On the zip wire, I can confidently make this prediction that if any other politician anywhere in the world got stuck on a zip wire, it would be, disastrous. For Boris, it would be an absolute triumph.
My seat's a bit stuck. There we go. I know. You know what? My favourite thing about, which that montage was fantastic, by the way, I can't decide whether it's George W. Bush trying to get out the door or Rishi Sunak trying to get in, because he's clearly trying to push on the door and the doorman hasn't opened it, and they clearly make up something about Larry the cat. It's very fun, though.
It was lovely.
And, you know, I love stuff like this. It just shows you politicians are human, isn't it, really? I think it's brilliant.
But we were just talking about what happened at the UN. What's your thought? Because a lot of things did go wrong.
Yeah, but it did look rather sulky to bring it up like that in the speech. I mean, I think with the ones
being sulky, I mean,
I know, who knew? But I think one of the things we saw in that little clip was that some people know how to style it out, and some people just pull a bit of a sulk.
What's your thought on it?
I think it was set up with the three things happening. Of course, I do.
But in terms of, like, as you say, it's how you deal with it.
Yeah,
because there's just loads of incidents where these things
deal with it with a smile. That's what I think.
I thought George W. Bush actually dealt with it quite well. Have you guys been ever involved in anything like that? A mishap?
Do you know? Well, I lost an election. You could call that a mishap.
I fell off a chair and knocked myself out in my office.
Oh, no. Well, at least that wasn't in front of everyone.
Exactly.
I had a journalist jump out from behind a bush and stick a microphone in my face.
I think the strange thing is lots of this stuff happens in everyone's everyday life, but it's not in front. That's what makes, obviously, quite funny at times. Yeah. But that's
I've had it performing when I've sang on stage in previous careers where the PA system's like blown up and I've had to just sing a cappella and carry on with the show and stuff like that. So,
well, as they say, if in trouble, always just carry on with the show.
Absolutely.
But that is it for the end of this show. I mean, it's certainly been lively. You've been very engaging and entertaining. Thank you very much indeed, Andrea and Badenoch. Thank you very much for joining us here on Sky News and the Politics Hub tonight. And that is it for us for this evening. We will be back at 7 p.m. tomorrow. Do join us then. Up next, it is the UK Tonight with Sarah Jane Mee. Have a very good evening. Goodbye.